is going to be a great year.
Nice!
Geeks.
2 rum and cokes, please.
I don't want nerds staying in this hotel.
Checkout time.
Over here is the beautiful Olympic-sized swimming pool.
We gotta get rid of these guys. We gotta get rid of them in a major way.
Get your hands up. Turn around.
We outsmarted them, we framed them, and we got them arrested.
We're doing nothing.
Last year we were messed with, yes, but we fought back and we won. We can do it again, guys.
I say we fight back now. Can I get you a drink or something?
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1987 sequel, Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise. Now, this is one of those sequels that still managed to make a decent amount of money in the box office. It only cost $10 million and it wound up making $30 million. And that doesn't count the profit that it inevitably got when it went on home video with rentals and purchases and other stuff like that. But it wasn't nearly as successful with critics, and it was outright massacred by critics upon its release. A lot of critics considered it to be trash, unfunny, one of the worst films they saw that year, and it does not have a very good reputation. And I really don't get it. After watching it, I actually liked it more than the first film. I would say, at best, it's still only above average, but it's a fun summer breeze of a comedy. It's a better film in a lot of ways when it comes to character development and storytelling and consistency of tone compared to the first movie. It isn't as funny as the first film, but there are still some moments that'll make you smile and make you chuckle. A lot of this film's humor comes from over-the-top silliness. Stuff like the opening credits, which is a parody of the Star Wars opening scroll, or how the nerds create a giant metal detector out of coconuts and whatever they can find on this island that they are stranded on at some point in the film. Stuff like that. And yeah, it's not as fresh as the first film when it comes to its unique take on nerds. And it does go back to a similar well when it comes to certain aspects of the story. But it is more consistent in terms of the tone, in terms of these characters. I feel the nerds, they work better in this environment than in the raunchy, R-rated teen sex comedy environment. That's just me personally. I think this kind of film fits their personalities better. The film is directed by Joe Roth, who prior to this, he did a few films, but nothing really that special. Even after this, he was really more well known for being a producer in Hollywood. And I felt his direction was I thought it was good. I thought he did a good job. I liked his energy. I like what he brought to the table. I like what he gave to this film in terms of really providing it with this quirky look that really tied in perfectly to the overall vibe and the overall tone of the film. It even has some zany camera tricks and camera work at times, and I do feel in some ways the direction is also a little bit of a step up from the first film. And where the sequel really improves upon the first movie is with the screenplay by Dan Gunselman and Steve Marshall. First off, I think it taking place at this convention in Florida for different frats. I actually feel that the setting of taking the nerds and putting them in Florida in the middle of the summer and also having them trapped on a deserted island at a later point in the film, I think that's actually pretty interesting and different than just your typical college setting. So I think the setting is a nice change of pace. I also feel that the tone, like I mentioned earlier, is much more consistent here, and it's honestly one of the best examples of a quirky, zany, silly film maintaining its tone throughout. And that's also a nice change of pace. The romance angle here between Lewis and Sonny, I think, is genuinely sweet and way better than the clunky romance from the first film. Certain characters like Lamar Latrell actually have more to do and feel like they are stronger characters. There's new characters that are brought into the fold, like Sonny and this other guy. I think his name is Stewart. Um and they are nice additions to the overall story and to the hijinks and everything that happens. Initially, Stan Gable was supposed to return and reprise his role alongside Ogre, but something happened and they ultimately replaced him with a different jock, jerk-off character uh, played by yeah, I think it was Bradley Whitford. Yeah, Roger Latimer. And that's also something that I think is a positive because Bradley Whitford really does add something particularly special to this performance that makes it stand out from Stan Gable. They are both total jerk offs. They're both assholes, but Bradley Whitford's a different kind of asshole. And Stan Gable, at times, I did want to smack him, but he didn't get under my skin quite as much as Bradley Whitford. Because Bradley Whitford has this I'm better than you, I have more money, I get all the women, you're just a bunch of fucking nerds. He has that kind of vibe. While Stan Gable is just your typical jerk off jock. Bradley Whitford's character Roger is the trust fund jerk off that has everything handed to him, and you want to hand him a knuckle sandwich. You know, that kind of thing. And I do feel the film did a good job really making him a loathsome, despicable character. He sets up the nerds and tricks them into thinking they're going on a joyride with some hot girls, and it's all set up so that they can get framed for stealing his car, and ultimately it leads to them getting stranded on this island. And I love the bits where they're on the island and they're bonding with each other and they're figuring things out. I even like the stuff earlier before all of that, where with just the insanity of the hotel that the nerds have to wind up staying at because Bradley Whitford and the other Alpha Betas find a way to kick them out of the hotel that they were initially supposed to stay in. And the whole sequence where it's ridiculous, where the Alpha Betas are dressed up like Indians and hiding out in what looks like an ancient Mayan temple, and they trick the nerds into humiliating themselves by getting rid of their clothes, And I like the creativity of that scene. It was a cool set of the Mayan temple, and there's like fire and flames, and that's another moment where you had some really strong character traits that were developed and shown. That's where Lamar actually showed a genuine backbone, and it was actually really a lot of fun to see him uh, provide that bit of bravado. And there's other things with the screenplay I like too, like the whole bit with James Hong as this really gross guy who's a master of grossness, and he takes Booger under his wing and teaches him how to hawk superhuman loogies and stuff like that. And you could tell that James Hong was having a blast with that role. I honestly would have loved to have seen more of that character and more of Booger with these gross powers, these gross superpowers. It seems like it's building up to something, but then the screenplay never really goes any farther than that. It just drops the gross superpowers bit and goes straight into the deserted island and them finding military equipment and suiting up like it's an action movie. That's another thing I really like about the film is when they find all the military stuff and suit up like it's a Rambo movie, and then absolutely but just crash the party, and was not really a party, but the meeting where they're going to be banned from the fraternity gatherings, and they just smash through the fucking wall with this amphibious tank. And I really like the ending. I think the ending is much more satisfying than the ending in the first film. It's not nearly as much of a letdown. And apparently, a lot of critics at the time, they had issues with the ending. They pointed out how poor the film is when it comes to the portrayal of the characters or nerds, and I don't really agree with that. Also, it had an issue with the fact that Lewis stood up for himself physically. He actually punched the bad guy. He punched the bully. I don't understand why that's an issue. That's something that I really love about this ending. That Lewis has a badass moment where he punches Roger in the face and gets the girl. And he's a genuine badass. Like, what's the problem with that? Why is that an issue? I think that's awesome. That makes the character of Lewis even cooler. Like, I don't understand why it's problematic for anyone, especially critics at the time. It really does make you wonder, like, why? It's fine for any other type of character in these kind of films that's not a nerd to stand up to the bully and punch him in the face, but because it's a nerd, it's not acceptable? That's bullshit. No, nerds can be badasses too, and nerds can kick some ass and take some names. And I don't see the problem with that. And that's what I really liked about it, is that the nerds actually are genuinely badass by the end of the movie. Lewis punches Roger in the face, something I wanted to see him do to Stan Gable in the first movie, and he gets the girl. And it's not perfect. You could tell the Anthony Edwards bits were tacked on, and there wasn't that much thought put into them. And initially, Anthony Edwards didn't want anything to do with it because he didn't like the screenplay. But eventually, he decided to begrudgingly do his few scenes. Thankfully, though, his scenes, it doesn't really appear as if he hates doing it, and he still gave a really good effort with his scenes. It never really appeared like he was half-assing it. And I actually like how they incorporate him in there, especially in the dream sequence, which is very creative. So there's a lot of stuff in this film that I think really should get more credit. And I guess it also just taps into the kind of film that I enjoy. I like silly 80s over the top comedies. I really do. That's one of that's a sweet spot for me with comedies, and just things that a lot of people wouldn't really find to be that funny or clever. I really find to be quite hilarious. Like the pool at the hotel, this rundown hotel, has some kind of mysterious monster in there that they don't really know what it is, but they throw something in the pool and it just gets eaten up in seconds. I really like that kind of stuff. I think it's fun. And I feel this screenplay, it's got a lot of moments like that and a lot of genuinely great things about it. Uh, Lines of dialogue not nearly as good in terms of one-liners as the first movie, and it is not as funny as the first film. I will definitely admit that, but I think it's a little more entertaining than the first movie because of the consistent tone. Also, I mean, there's other things too, where I know some people might think that the musical number in this and Say No on 15 would be something that is just a rehash or a retread of their musical number in the first movie, but I actually think it's another instance of this film being better than the first. The musical number in the first movie was fun, but it was very short. This was longer. It was more epic. You had an awesome duet with Booger and Poindexter with guitar and violin, and it was just a really fun song. I think the rapping was better too. Overall, I think it was the Say No to 15 was a better song than the one that was featured in the first film that won the talent contest, the talent show. Um, the soundtrack, though, doesn't have as many original songs that are as catchy or as good as the first film. But it does have some genuine bangers, like 38 Specials Back in Paradise that plays during the opening credits. Devo's version of Polka Dot Yellow Bikini. Um, the score by Mark Mothersbaugh, Gerald V. Cassell. You have Mark Mothersbaugh here, but it's not anything that amazing. It's pretty average, but it suits the film well, as does the cinematography by Charles Correll. I really like the editing by Richard Chew. I felt the editing was really quirky, and there were a lot of transitions that I thought were really ingenious and really did tap into the quirky, over the top nature of the film. And the cast, they all do a really great job. I mean, Robert Carradine is once again charming and genuinely likable as Lewis. And when you remove the skeevy, all I ever think about is sex part of his character in the first movie, the character to me is much more endearing and feels much more relatable and someone to root for. And Anthony Edwards is good in his little bit as Gilbert. Curtis Armstrong is just as fun to watch as Booger as he was in the first film. Larry B. Scott, I actually think he's better in terms of not necessarily a better performance, but I think there's more for him to do. And I think the character, the way that he's written, is a lot stronger. Timothy Busfield, he didn't seem to have as many bits, but the little bits that he did have were fun. Him on the beach, being a klutz. Andrew Cassese, I completely did not recognize Andrew here. I thought it was a different actor. I really did. But he definitely hit a serious growth spurt, that's for sure. That actor. And you got newcomers, like I said, Bradley Whitford, great bad guy. Courtney Thorne-Smith as Sunny, total babe, gorgeous, and a ton of personality and charisma, and she had really good chemistry with Robert Carradine. Even had Ed Lauter, who played the jerk manager at the hotel. He always does a good job playing these asshole kind of roles, and this was another instance where he really did pull that off so well. And, Donald Gibb, he's back as Ogre, and I like how Ogre has a change of heart. That's different too, where he gets stranded on the island with the nerds too, and then he eventually befriends them, and he becomes one of the nerds, and has this initiation ceremony at the end of the movie where he's now part of Lambda Lambda Lambda. So yeah, it's a really fun, lighthearted breeze of a film. It goes by at a really fast pace too. It's only an hour and 20 something minutes. I definitely feel that's another positive that this film has going for it. It's not boring at all. It doesn't have any pacing issues. And yeah, I do think it's an underrated gem in a lot of ways, despite the fact that, yes, at the end of the day, it's really just an above average 80s comedy, because it's not the funniest thing out there when it comes to its comedy, but it has its moments, and the cast is really game, and they are really likable, and they have great chemistry with one another, and the villains are hateable, but not the kind of hateable that you hate watching, and the overall plot and the setting is fun and unique enough. And yeah, I think it's a sequel that deserves a little more credit, and doesn't deserve the absolutely piss poor reputation that it has. There are much worse comedy sequels out there than Revenge of the Nerds 2. Uh, I mean, there are much worse Revenge of the Nerds movies than Revenge of the Nerds 2. Uh, Namely, all of the sequels after this. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what else to say about Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise, except thanks for watching my review. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.